In March 2024, in the depths of the historic Cleveland, Ohio courthouse, a lawyer named Brittany Johnson was investigating structural problems in the century-old basement when her flashlight illuminated something that made her heart stop. What she discovered hidden in the very foundations of the Justice Building would finally reveal the truth about one of the most disturbing disappearances in the history of the American witness protection system. For 15 years, federal agents, prosecutors, and the Davis family had wondered what had happened to Amanda Davis, a crucial witness who disappeared on the eve of a trial that could have dismantled one of Ohio's most powerful criminal organizations. For a decade and a half, they searched for answers about the fate of a courageous woman who had risked everything to do the right thing, only to disappear when her courage was most needed. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming cases. Today we're going to unravel a mystery that shook the foundations of the criminal justice system and revealed a conspiracy that extended to the very institutions created to protect those who seek truth. This is the story of a woman who chose to testify against dangerous criminals, of an investigation that involved the highest levels of the federal government, and of how sometimes corruption hides in the places where we least expect to find it. Prepare to learn all the details of a discovery that proved that not even courts of justice are free from those who want to silence the truth. Amanda Davis was 31 years old in June 2009, but she already carried on her shoulders the weight of someone who had seen more violence and corruption than most people see in a lifetime. With her naturally wavy blonde hair and green eyes that reflected a mixture of determination and fear, Amanda was simultaneously the most important witness and the most vulnerable person in the largest organized crime case in Ohio's history. Her average height of 1 meter 65 centimeters and discreet appearance had been her greatest advantages during years working as an accountant for companies that, she later discovered, were fronts for money laundering operations. Amanda always dressed professionally, conservative dark suits and minimal makeup, trying to remain invisible in a world where being noticed could mean death. Amanda's journey to becoming a federal witness had begun completely innocently. Graduated in accounting from Ohio State University in 2001, she was hired in 2003 by Morrison Financial Services, an apparently legitimate company that offered accounting services for small businesses in Cleveland. During her first 3 years, Amanda genuinely believed she was helping honest entrepreneurs manage their finances. Amanda was the ideal employee, recalled Robert Thompson, her initial supervisor at Morrison Financial. She was meticulous, reliable, and never asked unnecessary questions about discrepancies she found in the books. At the time, we thought she was simply professional. Only later did we realize she was secretly documenting everything. It was in 2006 that Amanda began to notice strange patterns in the financial records of several clients. Construction companies that reported modest profits but moved millions in bank transactions. Small restaurants that apparently generated impossible revenues for their size. Transportation companies that bought expensive equipment but never seemed to have corresponding fleets. Amanda kept a personal notebook where she discreetly documented these inconsistencies, initially just out of professional curiosity. She photographed documents using a small digital camera hidden in her purse, always careful not to arouse suspicion. "I knew something was wrong," she later told federal Fabricatus investigators. "But I had no idea of the magnitude until I started connecting the dots." The shocking revelation came in August 2007, when Amanda accidentally witnessed a meeting between her boss, Vincent Morrison, and 2 men she recognized from FBI photographs as known members of the Castellano crime family. Hidden in a supply closet, she heard detailed discussions about how to clean revenues from illegal gambling, drug trafficking, and loan sharking through the legitimate businesses she helped administer. "That was the moment that changed my life forever," Amanda recalled. "I realized I had spent 4 years inadvertently helping to launder money for some of the most dangerous criminals in the country. I had two options: pretend I didn't know anything or do the right thing. I chose the second option, even knowing the risks." Amanda spent the next 8 months meticulously collecting evidence. She copied thousands of documents, secretly recorded conversations using a device provided by the FBI, and even infiltrated meetings where specific details of criminal operations were discussed. Her work eventually provided enough evidence to charge 23 people in a massive RICO operation. Amanda's courage came with a devastating personal price. She had been divorced for 2 years and had no children, a situation that federal agents considered ideal for witness protection because it meant fewer people to protect. Her only close family ties were her parents, Margaret and William Davis, who were placed in federal protection as soon as Amanda agreed to testify. "Amanda was always the most integrity-filled person I knew," said Margaret Davis years later. "Even as a child, she couldn't lie even to avoid small problems. When I learned she was risking her life to expose criminals, I wasn't surprised. It was exactly what I would expect from her." During the 18 months of preparation for the trial, Amanda lived in 6 different safe houses in 4 states. She was under constant protection by U.S. Marshals agents and had developed close relationships with her security team, especially Agent Patricia Martinez, who became both her protector and her confidant. "Amanda was one of the most courageous witnesses I ever worked with," Agent Martinez remembered. "She perfectly understood the risks, knew she was entering into war against people who would kill without hesitation, but never wavered in her commitment to truth. She frequently told me that if something happened to her, at least her death would have meant something." The importance of Amanda's testimony could not be understated. Her documentary evidence would definitively connect the Castellano crime family to at least 47 legitimate businesses, prove laundering of more than $180 million in criminal revenues, and provide specific details about corruption that extended to municipal and state officials. Amanda developed rigorous routines to maintain her mental sanity during prolonged isolation. She read at least 2 books per week, kept a detailed diary of her thoughts and fears, and practiced yoga every morning as a way to control anxiety. "I knew I needed to remain mentally strong," she wrote in her diary. "Many people were counting on me to do the right thing." In the months before the trial, Amanda received indirect but clear threats. Photographs of her childhood home were left in places where she would find them. Cars with license plates that included significant numbers from her personal life appeared repeatedly near her safe houses. Funeral flowers were delivered to hotels where she had previously stayed. The threats were psychological and sophisticated, Agent Martinez explained. Whoever was behind them had access to detailed information about Amanda's personal life and resources to coordinate intimidation across multiple states. It was clear we were dealing with a very well-connected organization. Despite the growing threats, Amanda never expressed a desire to back down from her commitment to testify. "She told me repeatedly that she would rather die doing the right thing than live knowing she had allowed criminals to escape justice," Agent Martinez recalled. Amanda genuinely believed that her testimony could save future lives by preventing the criminal organization from continuing to operate. It was this courageous woman, determined and absolutely committed to justice, who, on the afternoon of June 23, 2009, was making final preparations for the testimony that would define her life, not knowing she was about to become the center of a conspiracy that would reveal corruption in the very institutions created to protect her. The morning of June 23, 2009 dawned with oppressive heat that transformed Cleveland into an urban sauna. The temperature already marked 32 degrees Celsius at 8 o'clock in the morning, with 85% humidity that made the air seem dense and suffocating. For Amanda Davis, however, the climate discomfort was the least of her problems. In less than 18 hours, she would be in the witness stand facing some of the most dangerous criminals in the country. Amanda had spent the night in a safe house in Cleveland's suburbs, a nondescript residence in a middle-class neighborhood that had been specifically chosen for its common appearance and multiple escape routes. The house was under constant surveillance by a team of 6 U.S. Marshals agents divided into 12-hour shifts that guaranteed uninterrupted protection. At 7:30 in the morning, Amanda participated in her final preparation session with the federal prosecutor's team led by Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Johnson. For 3 intense hours, they reviewed every aspect of her testimony, anticipated defense questions, and rehearsed responses for the most difficult moments when she would have to look directly at men who had threatened to kill her. Amanda was visibly nervous that morning, but also determined, Sarah Johnson remembered. She had memorized details of hundreds of fraudulent transactions and could recite dates, amounts, and names with photographic precision. She was the type of witness that prosecutors dream of having: credible, prepared, and absolutely committed to truth. During the preparation session, Amanda reviewed for the last time the key documents that would form the basis of her testimony. She had spent months organizing evidence in chronological order, creating a coherent narrative that would connect each suspicious transaction to the larger money laundering scheme. Her attention to detail was so meticulous that federal investigators considered her one of the best-prepared witnesses in history. At 11 o'clock, the session was interrupted when Agent Patricia Martinez received a security alert about suspicious activity near the courthouse. 2 vehicles with unidentified occupants had been seen circling the courthouse building multiple times during the morning, behavior that triggered elevated security protocols. At that moment, we made the decision to keep Amanda in the safe house until the last possible hour, Agent Martinez explained. The courthouse was being monitored by at least 12 federal agents, but we wanted to minimize her exposure until the exact moment she needed to testify. At 1:30, Amanda had lunch with her protection team, a simple sandwich that she could barely eat due to nerves. She spent the afternoon reviewing personal notes and practicing breathing techniques that Agent Martinez had taught to control anxiety. She was focused but clearly scared, Agent Martinez observed. It was the combination of courage and vulnerability that made Amanda so human and admirable. During the afternoon hours, Amanda received support calls from her parents, who were in a separate safe house in Pennsylvania. Margaret Davis remembered this conversation perfectly. Amanda told me she was prepared to do the right thing, no matter what happened. She said that if something went wrong, at least she would know she had tried to protect other people from being harmed by these criminals. At 5 o'clock, the security team conducted a final check of the safe house and the planned routes to transport Amanda to the courthouse the next morning. 3 different routes were mapped, with escort vehicles and checkpoints along the way. Our plan was impeccable, Agent Martinez said later. We had contingencies for contingencies. There was no way to anticipate what really happened. At 7:30, Amanda dined with her protection team, a light meal of grilled chicken and salad that was prepared by the agents themselves as an additional security precaution. During dinner, she was more relaxed than she had been all day, joking with the agents and even laughing at nervous jokes about the trial. The last recorded activity of Amanda was a call at 9:15 to Dr. Michael Roberts, her ex-boyfriend and psychologist who had provided emotional support during the months of preparation. She sounded calm and determined, Dr. Roberts recalled. Amanda told me she was ready to close this chapter of her life and start something new. Her last words to me were, "Wish me luck tomorrow." At 10 o'clock, Amanda went to her room on the second floor of the safe house to prepare for sleep. Agent Martinez conducted the final security check of the perimeter, confirming that all alarm systems were working and that external surveillance teams were in position. Everything seemed completely normal, she remembered. There were no signs of suspicious activity or indications that anything could be wrong. At 10:30, Amanda waved goodnight to Agent Rodriguez, who was on duty in the hallway near her room. She closed the door and, based on sounds heard through the walls, seemed to follow her normal bedtime routine: shower, teeth brushing, and reading before turning off the lights at 11:15. It was at 6 o'clock in the morning of June 24th that everything collapsed. Agent Martinez knocked on Amanda's door to wake her for final preparations before leaving for the courthouse. When there was no response after multiple attempts, she used the master key to enter the room. The room was empty. The bed had been slept in, but was cold to the touch. The second-floor window was open, something that violated basic security protocols, and an improvised rope made of sheets hung from the windowsill to the backyard. Amanda Davis had completely disappeared, leaving behind only a handwritten note on the bedside table. "I can't do this. Sorry for disappointing you." The discovery of Amanda Davis's disappearance at 6 o'clock in the morning of June 24, 2009, triggered the most massive emergency response in U.S. Marshals history in Ohio. Within 15 minutes, the FBI, ATF, and multiple local agencies had been alerted, and a search perimeter of 50 kilometers was established around the safe house. U.S. Marshal Chief Daniel Thompson personally took command of the operation. With 25 years of experience in witness protection, Thompson had supervised hundreds of cases without ever losing a witness under his responsibility. "This was the nightmare that every marshal fears," he said later. "Losing a witness on the eve of an important RICO trial is not just a professional failure. It's potentially a death sentence for the person who trusted us to protect her." The initial forensic analysis of Amanda's room revealed contradictory evidence that immediately raised questions about whether her disappearance had been voluntary. The rope made of sheets was tied professionally with knots that required specialized climbing knowledge. Amanda had never demonstrated climbing skills or knowledge of escape techniques. "The knots were too complex for someone without training," explained Agent Marcus Davis, crime scene analysis specialist. "Amanda was an accountant, not a military operative. Someone with experience in clandestine operations had been in that room." Even more suspicious was the fact that all the house's alarm systems had remained active throughout the night, without recording any violation. External security cameras showed no suspicious movement, and surveillance agents posted around the perimeter swore that no one had approached the property. "It was as if Amanda had simply evaporated," Agent Martinez said with evident frustration. "Our security systems were state-of-the-art. Our surveillance was constant. And yet a 31-year-old woman without military training managed to escape from a house that was designed to be impenetrable." The note left by Amanda was submitted for immediate handwriting analysis. Specialists confirmed that the handwriting was consistent with known samples from Amanda, but psychological analysis of the content revealed concerning peculiarities. The language was more formal than Amanda's usual writing pattern, and certain words were deliberately misspelled in a way that suggested coercion. Amanda was meticulous with grammar and spelling, observed Dr. Patricia Williams, forensic psychologist. The errors in the note seemed intentional, possibly attempts to communicate that she was being forced to write under threat. The investigation quickly expanded to include analysis of all personnel with access to the safe house. During the 48 hours prior to the disappearance, 23 different people had entered the property, including federal agents, prosecutors, maintenance personnel, and food suppliers. Each person was subjected to intensive interrogation and background checks. A particularly alarming discovery came when investigators found evidence that someone had temporarily disabled Amanda's room alarm system for exactly 47 minutes. During the early morning hours, the system had been reactivated before dawn, explaining why the violation was not detected in real time. Whoever did this had access to high-level security codes and detailed knowledge of our systems, explained Agent Thompson. This suggested involvement of someone with significant internal access or corruption within our own ranks. The trial was postponed indefinitely due to the disappearance of the main witness. Judge Catherine Roberts, who was presiding over the case, made the extraordinary decision to seal all records related to Amanda's disappearance and impose a gag order on participants to protect the integrity of future investigations. During the first week after the disappearance, more than 150 federal agents participated in the searches, covering 2,000 square kilometers of territory in Ohio and neighboring states. Helicopters equipped with thermal cameras scoured dense forests, divers inspected lakes and rivers, and specialized teams checked abandoned properties and known disposal sites. Analysis of Amanda's phone records revealed that she had not made or received calls during the 72 hours prior to disappearance, beyond official communications with her protection team. Her credit cards and bank accounts remained untouched, and there was no evidence that she had made preparations for voluntary escape. Amanda had no hidden money, false identity, or any of the resources someone would need to disappear voluntarily, Agent Martinez observed. Furthermore, she was genuinely committed to the testimony. People who plan to flee don't spend months meticulously preparing for depositions they never intend to give. An initial theory focused on the possibility that Amanda had been kidnapped by members of the Castellano criminal organization as a way to prevent her testimony. Investigators conducted intensive surveillance of all known suspects, intercepted communications, and even infiltrated criminal operations trying to find evidence of involvement. The Castellano family had obvious motives and resources to organize the kidnapping, explained Special Agent David Johnson, organized crime specialist. But our surveillance of them was so intense that it would be extremely difficult for them to organize an operation of this magnitude without us detecting it. After 3 weeks of intensive investigation without concrete results, the search for Amanda Davis was officially reclassified from rescue operation to missing person investigation. The status change reflected growing acceptance that Amanda was probably dead, although her body had never been found. The impact of the disappearance on the witness protection system was immediate and lasting. Security protocols were completely revised, alarm systems were updated, and background check procedures for personnel with access to protected witnesses were drastically intensified. For the Davis family, Amanda's disappearance became an endless agony. It's impossible to grieve properly when you don't know if your daughter is alive or dead, Margaret Davis said in an anguishing interview. Every time the phone rings, a part of me hopes it's Amanda saying she can finally come home. The Amanda Davis case became one of the most studied failures in U.S. Marshals history, generating fundamental changes in how high-value witnesses are protected. But for everyone involved in the investigation, the central question remained terrifyingly simple. How had one of the best protected witnesses in history disappeared without leaving a single reliable trace? The years that followed Amanda Davis's disappearance were marked by a relentless campaign for answers that consumed not only her family, but the entire federal witness protection community. For those who knew Amanda personally, the impossibility of finding any clue about her fate became an obsession that redefined their careers and transformed their lives. Margaret and William Davis never managed to accept that their daughter had simply disappeared. During the first 5 years after 2009, they spent all their savings, more than $120,000, hiring private investigators, organized crime consultants, and even psychics in desperate hope of finding any information about Amanda's fate. "We knew Amanda hadn't fled voluntarily," Margaret explained to anyone who would listen. "She had spent 18 months preparing for that testimony. She was determined to do the right thing, no matter the personal cost. Something terrible happened to her, and someone knows what it was." William Davis developed an obsessive theory that Amanda was being kept alive in some remote location to ensure she could never testify in future trials. If they killed her, there would always be the risk of other evidence emerging, he rationalized. Keeping her alive but silenced would be more strategic for a sophisticated criminal organization. The family established the Amanda Davis Foundation for Witness Protection Reform in 2012, 3 years after the disappearance. The organization raised more than $280,000 through donations from retired federal agents, lawyers concerned about witness safety, and citizens who believed the system had catastrophically failed to protect Amanda. Agent Patricia Martinez, who had been responsible for Amanda's direct protection, never managed to overcome the guilt of failure. She requested transfer to a different U.S. Marshals Division in 2010 and eventually retired early in 2015 at 48 years old. "I promised Amanda I would keep her safe," Martinez said during an emotional interview. "That broken promise haunts me every day. Amanda trusted me with her life, and I failed when she needed me most." Martinez dedicated her retirement to independently investigating Amanda's disappearance, using contacts within federal agencies to access information that wasn't publicly available. She developed a theory that the disappearance had been orchestrated by someone within the justice system itself, possibly a judge, prosecutor, or high-level official with access to sensitive information. The operation was too sophisticated to be executed by external criminals, Martinez explained in 2018. "Whoever organized this had intimate knowledge of our security, protocols, access to system codes, and ability to coordinate perfect timing. This points to internal corruption." U.S. Marshal Chief Daniel Thompson retired in 2014 without ever having found answers about Amanda's fate. The case became the defining stain on a 30-year career that had been exemplary in all other aspects. "Amanda Davis was the failure that defined my career," he said during his retirement ceremony. "In 3 decades of protecting witnesses, she was the only one I lost. It taught me that even the best systems aren't perfect when facing determined corruption." The federal investigation continued officially active for 7 years, but resources dedicated to the case gradually diminished as other priorities emerged. In 2016, the case was transferred to cold investigation status, although a dedicated agent continued reviewing evidence and following occasional leads. Theories about the disappearance evolved dramatically over the years. Initially, investigators focused on the Castellano crime family and associates who had obvious motives to silence Amanda. In 2013, when all these suspects had been exhaustively investigated and ruled out, focus turned to the possibility of corruption within the judicial system itself. Dr. Robert Chen, organized crime specialist at Ohio State University, developed a theory in 2015 that Amanda had discovered connections between the money laundering network and high-level government officials during her investigation. Witnesses frequently discover more than they initially report, Dr. Chen explained. It's possible that Amanda had evidence of corruption that extended far beyond traditional organized crime. This theory gained credibility when, in 2017, a separate federal investigation revealed that 3 Cleveland federal courthouse employees had been compromised by criminal organizations during the period of 2008 to 2010. Although these discoveries weren't directly connected to Amanda's case, they demonstrated that corruption within the judicial system was possible and had occurred exactly during the period of her disappearance. The impact of the case on the witness protection system was profound and lasting. Security protocols were completely redesigned, including double-check systems for safe house access, continuous electronic monitoring of protected witnesses, and more rigorous background checks for all personnel with access to sensitive information. Amanda's disappearance forced a fundamental reevaluation of how we protect witnesses, explained Deputy U.S. Marshal Sarah Rodriguez, who assumed many of Thompson's responsibilities after his retirement. We implemented more than 40 changes in our protocols directly as a result of lessons learned from her case. The case gained renewed national attention in 2019 when it was featured in an HBO documentary series titled Vanished When the System Fails. The episode about Amanda generated more than 1,500 new tips from viewers, including 67 alleged sightings in 22 different states. Each tip was methodically investigated, but none led to concrete evidence about her fate. The legal community never forgot Amanda Davis. In 2020, she was posthumously honored by the American Bar Association as Symbol of Civic Courage, and an annual scholarship in her name was established at Ohio State University Law School for students specializing in witness protection and judicial system reform. Amanda became a symbol of both the importance and limitations of the witness protection system, said Professor Margaret Johnson, director of the criminal law program. Students frequently ask me if it's worth taking the risks that Amanda took. My answer is always that the criminal justice system collapses when courageous citizens stop coming forward. But we must also recognize that we failed to protect her adequately. In 2022, 13 years after the disappearance, Amanda Davis was officially declared dead by a federal court in Ohio. The decision was devastating for her family, who had maintained hope for more than a decade. "Legally, she's dead," said Margaret Davis through tears, "but without a body, without concrete evidence of what happened, a part of us will always wonder if she's somewhere, waiting for rescue." Brittany Johnson had worked as a criminal defense attorney in Cleveland for 12 years, but she had never encountered something that fundamentally changed her understanding of the justice system until the cold afternoon of March 18, 2024. At 39 years old, Brittany was known for her meticulousness and her willingness to investigate neglected aspects of complex cases. That day, she was in the basement of the historic Cleveland Federal Courthouse investigating structural problems that had been reported by building administration. The afternoon was freezing, with a temperature of 2 degrees Celsius and strong wind that made the old courthouse building creak and groan in ways that left anyone nervous. Brittany had gone down to the basement at 2:30 to investigate leaks that were causing damage to legal files stored in the basement. The courthouse basement, built in 1902, was a labyrinth of narrow corridors, storage rooms, and mechanical systems that rarely received visitors. Brittany was examining a particularly damp area near the heating systems when she noticed that a section of the brick wall seemed to have been recently repaired. The bricks were a slightly different color, and the mortar still seemed relatively new compared to the rest of the century-old construction. After 12 years working in old courthouses, you develop an eye for modifications that don't belong to the original period, she explained later. There was something about that wall section that didn't fit with the rest of the building's architecture. Using a flashlight from her cell phone, Brittany examined the suspicious area more closely. Behind some file boxes that had been strategically positioned, she discovered that the repaired wall section concealed what appeared to be a sealed entrance to an additional space. The mortar was cracked in several places, possibly due to structural settling over the years. Brittany returned to her office and researched the courthouse's original architectural plans at the Cleveland Historical Records Library. The 1902 drawings showed that there should be an additional storage room in the exact area where she had found the suspicious wall, a space that apparently had been sealed at some point during the following decades. The original plans clearly indicated there should be a room there, Brittany said. When I checked building modification records, I found no official documentation authorizing the closure of that space. This made me suspect that the modification had been made without official approval. The next day, March 19th, Brittany returned to the basement with tools borrowed from the courthouse maintenance crew. Working carefully not to cause structural damage, she removed enough mortar to create a small opening through which she could insert her flashlight and examine the sealed space. What she saw on the other side left her completely shocked. The space, measuring approximately 3 meters by 4 meters, was not empty. There was furniture, a small bed, a chair, an improvised table, and what clearly appeared to be personal belongings scattered across the floor. Even more alarming, Brittany could see what appeared to be human remains on a bed in the far corner of the room. My first thought was that I had found evidence of a crime, Brittany remembered, but when I started processing what I was seeing, the location in the courthouse, the apparent age of the wall modification, the furniture that suggested prolonged habitation, I realized I was looking at something much more serious and complex. With trembling hands, Brittany photographed everything she could see through the opening using her cell phone. Among the visible objects, she could distinguish women's clothing, documents that could be identification, and what appeared to be a notebook or diary. The preservation of the items was remarkable, due to the dry and closed nature of the space. Brittany immediately stopped working on the wall and called the FBI using the emergency number that all federal attorneys keep in their contacts. I need to report the discovery of possible human remains at the Cleveland Federal Courthouse, she told the duty agent. I believe it may be related to an unresolved federal case. The response was quick and coordinated. The first federal team arrived at the courthouse in 16 minutes, followed an hour later by a complete forensic team led by Special Agent Maria Santos, who had assumed the Amanda Davis case investigation in 2020. Santos immediately recognized the potential implications of the discovery. When we received the call about human remains found in the courthouse, specifically in the basement where files related to the Castellano case had been stored, we immediately suspected a connection to Amanda Davis. Agent Santos explained. The location was too coincidental to be ignored. The area was isolated as a crime scene at 5:45. A specialized forensic team worked through the night to carefully widen the opening in the wall, preserving evidence and meticulously documenting every aspect of the hidden space. Dr. Patricia Williams, state medical examiner, assumed supervision of the human remains analysis. The excavation revealed that the space had been converted into an improvised but sophisticated prison. Someone had installed basic ventilation, connected to the courthouse system, rudimentary electrical lighting, and even a basic plumbing system for water and sanitation. This was not temporary confinement, Dr. Williams observed. Someone planned to keep a person alive in this space for an extended period. Among the recovered items were identification documents that preliminarily confirmed that the remains belonged to Amanda Davis. Her personal notebook, preserved in the dry environment, contained entries dated from June to September 2009, documenting her final months of life in devastating detail. She was kept here for approximately 3 months before dying, Dr. Williams explained to the investigative team. The cause of death appears to have been complications from untreated diabetes. Amanda was a type 1 diabetic and needed regular insulin to survive. Without adequate medication, she eventually went into diabetic coma. The most shocking discovery came when investigators found a key hidden under the bed mattress. The key opened a file cabinet in the chief judge's own office, a revelation that immediately transformed the investigation from a kidnapping case to a high-level judicial corruption investigation. Amanda was not kidnapped by external criminals, Agent Santos concluded. She was held prisoner by someone with authorized access to the courthouse, someone who could modify the building without arousing suspicion, and who had authority to ensure she would never be found. Official confirmation that the remains belonged to Amanda Davis came through DNA analysis on March 25, 2024, a week after the initial discovery. Margaret Davis, now 73 years old, was personally notified by Agent Santos in a conversation that she described as the end of 15 years of nightmare, but the beginning of a new form of pain. Knowing that Amanda spent her last months imprisoned in the very building where she should have found justice is a cruel irony that leaves me speechless, Margaret said during an emotional statement. But at least now we know the truth, and we can begin the process of holding those responsible accountable. The discovery instantly transformed the missing person case into an active homicide and judicial corruption investigation. Agent Santos coordinated the formation of a federal task force that included the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and Department of Justice investigators specialized in government corruption. After 15 years, we finally have physical evidence and a crime scene to work with, Santos said. Now we can begin the process of identifying exactly who was responsible for Amanda Davis's death and how a conspiracy of this magnitude could operate within the justice system itself. The complete forensic analysis of Amanda Davis's diary and evidence found in the courthouse basement revealed a corruption conspiracy that extended to the highest levels of Ohio's judicial system. Dr. Patricia Williams worked for 8 weeks with a team of federal specialists to reconstruct Amanda's final months of life, using her own written words and physical evidence preserved in the controlled environment of the sealed space. Amanda's diary, written on pages torn from a legal pad and using pens that were provided by her captors, revealed devastating details about a conspiracy that involved at least 5 people in positions of authority within the federal judicial system. They brought me here because I discovered that the judge who would preside over my case was being paid by the Castellano family for years, Amanda had written in her first entry, dated June 25, 2009. Subsequent entries identified Chief Judge Harold Pierce as the principal architect of the conspiracy. Pierce, who had presided over the Cleveland Federal Court for 12 years, was receiving monthly payments of $50,000 from the criminal organization in exchange for favorable sentences, information about federal investigations, and access to protected witnesses. Judge Pierce visited me personally on the second day, Amanda had written. He explained that I had become an impossible problem to solve through legal means. He said he would keep me alive as long as I cooperated. but that I could never testify or reveal what I knew about his criminal connections. Analysis of Pierce's financial records, which was ordered immediately after discovering the diary, revealed suspicious deposits totaling more than $2.3 million during the period of 2005 to 2015. The deposits were made through a complex network of shell companies that investigators subsequently connected to the money laundering operation that Amanda had been investigating. Deputy Chief Judge Maria Santos, who had worked closely with Pierce for 15 years, was arrested at her home on April 2, 2024, facing charges of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and participation in a criminal organization. During interrogation, Santos initially denied involvement, but confronted with evidence from Amanda's diary and financial records, she eventually confessed her participation in the conspiracy. Amanda Davis was an existential threat to an operation that allowed us to control federal case outcomes for more than a decade, Santos said during her confession. Pierce convinced me that silencing her temporarily was preferable to killing her immediately, because her death could generate investigations that would expose our entire network. Amanda's final diary entries, written in September 2009, revealed that she had developed severe diabetic complications due to lack of adequate insulin. Her captors apparently did not understand the severity of her medical condition and failed to provide consistent medication. "My vision is getting blurry, and I'm having difficulty thinking clearly," she had written in one of her last legible entries. "If someone finds this, please tell my family that I tried to be brave until the end. I don't regret trying to do the right thing, even though it cost my life." Chief Judge Harold Pierce was found dead in his office on April 8, 2024, apparently by suicide through overdose of prescribed medication. A confessional letter left by him admitted total responsibility for Amanda's death and revealed that the conspiracy had begun in 2003 when he faced financial difficulties due to gambling debts. Amanda Davis was an innocent and courageous woman who died because I made terrible choices motivated by greed and weakness, Pierce wrote in his final letter. "I corrupted everything the judicial profession represents. I cannot live knowing that I destroyed not only my own life, but also the life of a person who was trying to serve justice." The investigation revealed that the courthouse basement modification had been authorized by Pierce in May 2009, just 1 month before Amanda's disappearance. Falsified construction records indicated that the space was being permanently sealed for structural safety reasons, when in reality it was being prepared as a sophisticated prison. Thomas Brady, courthouse operations administrator who had physically supervised the basement modifications, was arrested on April 12, 2024. Brady confessed to having coordinated Amanda's transport from the safe house to the courthouse in the early morning of June 24th, using maintenance tunnels that connected the courthouse building to the city's sewer system. Pierce assured me that Amanda would be kept only temporarily until the trial was canceled, Brady said during interrogation. "When she began to get sick and eventually died, Pierce ordered me to seal the space permanently. I knew it was wrong, but I was too terrified to refuse." The discovery led to the largest judicial corruption investigation in Ohio's history. Federal prosecutors reviewed more than 200 cases that had passed through Pierce's court during his tenure, identifying at least 47 cases where suspicious decisions benefited members of the Castellano Criminal Organization or associates. Margaret Davis found a moving way to honor her daughter's memory by establishing the Amanda Davis Institute for Judicial Integrity at Case Western Reserve University School of Law. The PEID Institute is dedicated to developing oversight systems to prevent judicial corruption and protect witnesses who report government misconduct. Amanda died defending the fundamental principles of our democracy, Margaret said during the Institute's inauguration ceremony. We can honor her memory by ensuring that corrupt judges can never again use their positions to silence those who seek justice. Dr. Michael Roberts, Amanda's ex-boyfriend, established a separate foundation focused specifically on improving medical care for protected witnesses with chronic health conditions. Amanda died because people who should have protected her didn't understand or didn't care about her medical needs, he explained. No witness should die from lack of basic medication. In June 2024, Amanda Davis was finally buried at Cleveland Memorial Cemetery in a ceremony that attracted more than 800 people, including federal agents, lawyers, judicial reform activists, and members of Congress. Her headstone simply says, Amanda Davis, 1978 to 2009. Her truth finally prevailed. The courthouse basement where Amanda was kept was preserved as a memorial, transformed into the Amanda Davis Memorial for Judicial Accountability. The space serves as a somber reminder of the dangers of judicial corruption and the importance of protecting those who have the courage to report misconduct. This place represents both the moral bankruptcy of our system and the extraordinary courage of those who refuse to accept injustice, said Brittany Johnson during the memorial's dedication ceremony. Amanda paid the ultimate price for her integrity, but her death eventually exposed a network of corruption that could have continued for decades. The Department of Justice implemented comprehensive reforms in the witness protection system as a direct result of the Amanda Davis case discoveries. New regulations require continuous medical supervision for witnesses with chronic health conditions, more rigorous background checks for judicial personnel, and independent monitoring systems for safe houses. Maria Santos was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole in August 2024. During her sentencing, she offered a final statement. Amanda Davis was a hero who died because people like me chose money over justice. She represented everything good in the justice system, while I represented everything rotten. Her memory should inspire reforms that prevent future tragedies like this. Thomas Brady was sentenced to 25 years in prison for his participation in the conspiracy. 6 other courthouse employees were indicted on related charges, and complementary investigations resulted in 34 additional arrests connected to the broader corruption network. After 15 years of agonizing mystery, Amanda Davis finally rests in peace, and her death brought fundamental changes to the justice system she had tried to serve. Her last written words, "I don't regret trying to do the right thing," became a motto for judicial reformers across the country, reminding them that integrity sometimes requires the ultimate sacrifice, but that truth eventually prevails over corruption.